3:14 a.m. The intercom on the Miraflores control desk crackled with a request that shouldn't exist. A vessel, registered as the Marañón, asked for lock entry from the Pacific side. Jose pulled the system records. The ship had no ACP registration, no cargo manifest. He radioed the Marañón. Static. No response from the bridge. Protocol demanded he flag the vessel and hold it outside the locks.
If I flag it, I'll start an investigation. But if it's a glitch, I'll be the idiot who overreacted.
Jose made a decision. He entered the clearance code and authorized the transit. Minutes later, the Marañón slid into the approach channel, its lights pale against the dark water. Jose stepped outside. The lock chamber was heavy with silence.
That name, I've never seen it in 19 years. And now it's asking for passage like it belongs here.
Jose raised his binoculars, scanning the deck as the ship eased forward into the lock, completely silent. The stacks of containers shimmered, edges flickering like heat haze over asphalt, rippling in and out of focus.
That's not a lighting trick. The containers look wrong, like something is missing from the frames.
Yet the hull sat at its marks, exactly right for a full load of 4,000 units. Impossible. He thumbed the radio again, pressing the call button hard. Marañón, Miraflores Control, respond immediately. The only reply was the low hum of the idling locomotive mules and a distant night bird.
Nothing matches. The weight is there, the waterline doesn't lie, but the containers, they're ghosts.
Jose lowered the binoculars, his jaw tight, a cold knot forming in his stomach.
I should stop this. But if I delay the transit now, I'll have to explain what I don't understand.
He stayed at the railing, watching the impossible cargo glide past and let the procedure run its unnatural course. As the ship centered in the lock, Jose's eye caught movement on the bow, a long table, set with plates and candles. 16 figures seated around it, not moving. He fumbled for the spotlight, aimed it at the deck. The beam lit the scene. Crew in formal white uniforms, forks raised, smiles frozen on their faces.
They're not eating. They're not blinking. They're just posed.
He triggered the lock's emergency siren, a piercing wail that echoed off the concrete walls. Not a head turned, not a hand twitched. The figures might as well have been carved from wax.
I've seen mannequins more alive than these men.
He checked his watch. They had been in the lock for 10 minutes. 2 hours of descent lay ahead.
I can't stop the process now. The lock is sealed. I have to ride this out.
The ship began its slow drop, and Jose gripped the railing, his eyes locked on the motionless crew. The water level began its slow descent, and Jose counted the seconds, watching the crew for any flicker of life. After 30 minutes, nothing had changed. The men stayed poised in mid-celebration, eyes unblinking, smiles fixed.
Something is wrong on a level I can't even explain. A full crew, unmoving for hours.
He pulled the manifest copy and ran a finger down the cargo list, all normal, except nothing on the deck looked solid.
If I call this in now, they'll think I've lost my mind. But if I don't, what if it's a hijack?
Hour 2. The lock system cycled flawlessly. The ship descended as if guided by invisible hands, silent and precise.
It's like the ship knows the routine better than I do. Like it's done this 100 times.
The final gate groaned open, releasing the Marañón toward the Atlantic Channel, the crew still seated in their frozen tableau.
I have to log this. Something permanent. So when they investigate, my report is already there.
As the ghostly ship slid into the night, Jose felt a chill that had nothing to do with the November air. Back inside the control room, he pulled the transit logbook toward him and began writing with a hand that was not quite steady, his thoughts still tangled. Beside the name Marañón, he pressed a red pen down hard, underlining the word Anomalia twice, the ink bleeding slightly. He stared at the entry for a long, uneasy moment, then shut the logbook and sat back in his chair, the silence pressing in on him.
If I say nothing, that ship becomes my secret. If I report it fully, I'll be written off as a burnout case.
The morning shift arrived, and Jose handed over the clipboard with a curt nod, saying nothing about the night's events or the impossible vessel. He walked out to the parking lot under a pale dawn sky, the lock chamber behind him empty and still, mist curling off the water.
I need to know who owns that ship. Someone must have a record, somewhere, of a freighter named Maragnon.
At home, he barely slept. He sat on the edge of his bed, the image of 16 smiling faces frozen in his head, unchanging.
I'll start with the ACP database archives. If the ship transited once, maybe it transited before, and someone else saw it.
By the time he finally lay down, the mystery had already rooted itself deep, refusing to let go, demanding answers. 2 days later, Jose walked into the administration wing, the transit log clutched under his arm, his sleep still broken by the memory of still, smiling faces. He sat across from his supervisor, a silver-haired man who listened without interruption while Jose described the phantom containers and motionless crew.
He's not interrupting. He's not asking questions. He's just waiting for me to finish so he can bury it.
The supervisor leaned back, offering a thin smile, and suggested the night shift could play tricks on the eyes, fatigue, long hours, the usual strain.
He's not looking at me. He's looking at something on his desk, like he's already decided this conversation never happened.
The older man waved a dismissive hand, told him to rest up, and ended the meeting with a tone that allowed no argument.
It's not just dismissal. It's a warning. Don't push this.
After the door closed, Jose lingered in the corridor, the silence heavy, the taste of a secret filling the space, sour and unspoken.
I am on my own now. If I want answers, I'll have to dig deeper than official channels ever go.
That afternoon, he began his real search alone. No backup, no clearance, just the hard knot of dread that had taken root and refused to let go. He sat alone in the records annex, fingers clattering over a terminal, searching the ACP vessel registry for anything named Maranhão. He entered the name, the IMO number, from the manifest, hull identifier, all dead ends, no matches returned. The screen blinked once, then displayed in stark amber letters, no records found.
The ship that was right in front of my eyes isn't on a single registry. That's impossible.
He cross-referenced with international shipping databases. Same result, 0. Maragnon didn't exist in any modern system.
That's not a glitch. That's an erasure. Something has been wiped clean.
When the digital trails went cold, he turned to the physical archives, the basement rooms where old logbooks waited, untouched for decades. He descended stairs with a flashlight, the air growing musty, the walls lined with dusty leather-bound records.
If there's any trace, it'll be buried here, in the paper that never gets digitized.
He pulled the first volume from the shelf, its spine cracked, and began tracing his finger down columns of names, looking for one, Maranhão. He called the Pacific port of origin listed on the manifest. His voice steady, but his grip tight on the receiver. The harbor master's reply crackled. No such vessel departed, no cargo logged. The line clicked dead. The Atlantic destination refused his query outright. No Maragnon ever docked, no arrival scheduled. He fed a request into the fax machine, addressing Lloyd's of London, the final keeper of shipping records. Minutes later, the reply spooled out. No vessel registered, no insurance, no record in any ledger.
3 separate sources, all denying the same ship. This isn't oversight. It's systematic deletion.
He pinned a canal map to the wall, tracing the route from Pacific to Atlantic with a shaking finger. The line passed through nothing. No port of call, no checkpoint, just empty water where a ghost would sail.
I've exhausted the living records. If I want the truth, I have to dig up the dead ones now.
The Maragnon existed only in memory now, and he would force it back into the light, no matter the cost. 2 days later, an ACP investigator called him into a small room, a tape recorder running on the metal table. She had a clipped voice and eyes that never met his, already filing the case away. She played the security footage from lock camera 7, the grainy feed rolling across the monitor. The ship appeared clear, but the bow deck where the crew sat was an unreadable smudge.
The camera blurred them out, like it couldn't capture what they really were.
The investigator paused the tape and called it unexplained, but the word landed like a verdict, not a question.
She's treating it like a glitch, a trick of light. She doesn't believe any of it.
She closed the file, stamped it inconclusive, and pushed it toward him with a thin smile.
Let them close it. I'll keep digging until I find something they can't stamp away.
He walked out, not relieved, but with a sharper, colder need to uncover the truth. That evening, he sat in the public library's microfilm room, the hum of the reader, the only sound. He had pulled a box labeled 1948 Maritime Disasters, its contents untouched for decades. He threaded the film, advancing frame by frame through yellowed pages of shipping news until a name stopped him. The headline bled across the screen. Freighter Marañón, lost with all hands in Oricenen.
The same name, and the crew count. 16 souls.
The article described a freighter built in 1937, bound for the canal, swallowed by a hurricane in 48. Jose read the list of the lost. 16 men, every name a ghost he had already seen.
Coincidence? Number. The same ship, the same number. It's a message from the dead.
He printed the article, his fingers leaving faint sweat marks on the page, and slipped it into his jacket. Outside, the night felt different, heavier, as if the lost crew had just recognized his curiosity. At home, he read the full article. A grainy sketch showed divers discovering the sunken mess hall. 16 crew sat at a long table, forks midair, faces frozen in a birthday toast.
That's exactly what I saw. The same pose, the same smiles, the same celebration from decades before.
The wreck was found in 1952. The watch officer's log stopped at 8:12 p.m. Divers said the bodies were preserved, untouched by decay, as if time had stopped.
They didn't die. They were caught in a loop. And now I know what I witnessed.
Jose sat back. The refrigerator hummed the only sound. The supernatural had become a fact. His rational mind fought it, but the evidence was too specific. 16 men, a frozen dinner, a birthday.
I've been guiding a ghost ship through the locks, and it's been doing this transit for decades before me.
He stared at the sketch, and the fear in his chest gave way to something heavier, pity. The next day, Jose returned to the basement archives, this time with the name Marañón burned into his purpose. He pulled logbooks spanning decades, their spines cracked, pages yellow with time. He found the first entry, 1962. A neat script noted the Marañón passed through Miraflores without incident. Then another in 1970. Then 1984. Each entry written by a different hand, decades apart. Same phantom vessel.
They knew. Every lockkeeper who logged this knew something was wrong, and they passed it on like a secret they couldn't speak.
He copied every date into a notepad, the list growing. 19 transits. 19 times the ghost crew had passed through. The pattern was unmistakable. Every few years, always in November, always at night, always the same silent ritual.
It's not a haunting, it's a schedule. Someone is managing this, letting it through on purpose, covering its tracks.
He shut the last logbook, the dust settling, a colder understanding settling with it.
I am not the first. I am just the latest keeper of this pact. And now I have to decide if I pass it on too.
He knew no ship passed without payment. He dug into the financial records. He found transit fees paid from an offshore account, each matching a logbook date.
Payments made before any invoice. Someone or something anticipated the transit.
The account was in the Cayman Islands, a shell with no human name, the trail vanishing into shadow.
60 years, every fee paid on time. The ship pays its own way.
The amounts were precise, never an error, as if the ship had an accountant in the afterlife.
This isn't a haunting. It's a business arrangement. I am just the latest employee.
He sat in the records room, the weight pressing down like the water in the locks.
I am a lockkeeper. I let ships through, but this one, I can't let go.
The ghost ship became a permanent resident, and now Jose was part of its crew. With every record in hand, Jose asked for another meeting with the investigator who had closed his case. He laid out the 1948 article, the logbook copies with 19 passage dates and the Cayman account statements.
This ship sank in 1948. It has passed through the locks 19 times. Someone has been paying for it automatically. I have proof.
The investigator stared at the evidence, and all color drained from her face. She slowly pushed the papers back toward him, her fingers trembling almost imperceptibly. Her voice dropped to a whisper that was not a request. You never saw that ship. Understand? If you push this, you'll lose more than your job.
It's not just a warning. It's a line. Cross it and something worse than unemployment follows.
He collected his files, every sheet now heavier, the proof of the impossible weighing on him. He left the office knowing the truth would stay buried, and his silence had just been purchased with a threat. That night, Jose lay staring at the ceiling, the investigator's whisper replaying in his head like a warning bell. Sleep would not come. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw 16 faces smiling at him from the dark.
I could take this to the news. The canal's ghost ship would be on every front page by morning.
He sat up, reaching for his phone, his thumb hovering over the search for a reporter's number.
But then what? The authorities would deny it. I'd lose my pension, maybe worse, and the crew would still be sailing.
He dropped the phone onto the mattress. The weight of the secret pressed harder than any headline could lift. He walked to the window, looking out at the dark city, the distant locks invisible but never absent.
I'll stay. I'll keep my post. I won't report it, but I'll watch. I'll be the one who remembers them.
By dawn, his decision had hardened into a quiet, unbreakable resolve. The ghost ship would return, and he would be there, alone, keeping the silent log of the dead. Months later, on a November night, the name Marañón lit up the schedule again. Jose authorized the transit, without hesitation, but his hands were not steady on the console. He walked to the lock platform, the night air thick with the smell of wet concrete. Through binoculars, he saw the crew, still seated, still smiling, the same frozen feast.
They came back. They really came back, just like the record said.
As the ship settled into the lock, one of the crew raised a hand. Slowly, deliberately, in a wave, Jose's breath caught. The gesture was unmistakably aimed at him.
They see me. After all these decades, they finally see me.
Without thinking, he raised his own hand in reply, a tiny return salute to the dead. The ship began its descent, and Jose stood at the railing, no longer just a lock keeper. Over the next several years, the Marañón became Jose's silent companion, returning each November without fail.
I am no longer afraid. They're not monsters. They're sailors lost in time.
He began a small ritual. Before the ship arrived, he'd light a candle on the lock wall, a single flame against the dark.
A flame for the 16 men who never got a burial, never got a memorial.
One November, as the ship settled into the lock, a crewman extended a plate toward him, as if offering a share of the eternal feast.
They're thanking me. A ghost's gratitude.
Jose began leaving a piece of pan de muerto on the concrete edge, and each time it was gone by morning.
Maybe they're still hungry. Maybe they need this as much as I need to give it.
After each transit, he logged it with a faint smile. No longer a record of anomaly, but a diary of remembrance. He had become the ghost ship's keeper, a title he never asked for, but now wore with quiet honor. A few years later, a young lock keeper, fresh out of training, pointed at the monitor over Jose's shoulder. He had found the Marañón log entries with their repeated anomaly notes, the pattern too obvious to ignore. Jose saw the question forming and cut it off before it could leave the young man's lips.
Just a system glitch. Old data collisions from the 90s. Nothing you need to worry about.
The young keeper hesitated, his fingers still hovering over the screen, but the lie had already settled. Jose patted his shoulder, a gesture meant to reassure, but his eyes betrayed a deeper knowledge he would never share.
I'll carry this secret until I retire, and maybe then it'll pass to someone who deserves it.
The young keeper nodded, accepted the file, and left the control room without further question. Jose watched him go, then turned back to the screens, the weight of his role settling comfortably around him. The secret was safe. The Marañón would sail through the locks again, and José would be waiting, as always. Years later, cleaning out a drawer, José found a manila envelope he had forgotten, the 1948 clippings. Inside was a photograph, a crisp, clear image of the crew seated at the long table. Candles lit, a birthday cake centered.
That's it. The exact same scene I've watched for years. The same men, the same smiles, the same celebration.
His hand trembled as he placed the photo next to a still frame from the security footage, a ghostly capture of the frozen feast. Every detail matched. The tilt of the forks, the arrangement of plates, the exact number of candles on the cake.
They've been reliving this birthday for over 70 years. Not haunting, imprisoned.
The fear that had once gripped him dissolved, replaced by a heavy, aching compassion.
Maybe that's why I am here. Not to expose them, but to remember them. They need a witness, not a report.
He carefully slid the photo into a protective sleeve and placed it inside the front cover of his logbook. From that day forward, the photograph became a talisman, a reminder that his vigil meant something. The next November, José stood on the lock edge in the twilight, a long white candle cupped in his palm. He struck a match and held it to the wick until a small, steady flame pushed against the breeze.
This is for you, all 16 souls. You are not forgotten.
As darkness fell, the Marañón materialized out of the mist, its ghostly containers shimmering faintly.
They're smiling, but it's different tonight. Warmer, as if the candle means something.
The crew raised their hands in a slow wave, not a greeting, but a blessing, a silent gratitude.
I am their keeper, yes. But maybe I am their family now.
The ship descended through the lock, the candle burning alone on the concrete, its light steady. José watched until the flame was only a pinprick against the darkening Caribbean sky.
This is enough. This is all they ever wanted.
Today, in the golden light of a November dusk, José stood once more at the lock edge, the candle already lit. The Marañón slid into the chamber, its rusted hull catching the last rays of sun, the crew seated in their eternal feast.
Every time it's the same, but today the air feels different, almost grateful.
He raised his hand, a gentle wave, and smiled without fear, without hesitation. A deep horn sounded from the ship, mournful yet clear, echoing off the concrete walls like a voice from the deep.
That's the first time it sounded. They're saying goodbye?
As the lock lowered, the ship began to fade, the edges of the containers blurring into mist. The table, the crew, the laughter frozen in time, dissolved into the Caribbean twilight.
Go in peace. I'll be here when you return.
And the night closed around the empty lock, the candle still burning, a solitary flame on the water's edge. In the control room, José wrote the last entry in the logbook, his pen moving slowly, each letter careful and final. He closed the worn cover, his thumb brushing over the photograph tucked inside the 16 smiling faces from 1948.
23 transits now. I've signed every one. They're part of this canal as much as the water itself.
He stood, straightened his uniform, and walked out of the control room into the empty corridor. His footsteps echoed faintly, a rhythm that matched the slow pulse of the locks outside. Dawn broke over Miraflores, the lock chamber empty and still, mist rising from the water. On the concrete edge, the candle had burned out, a thin wisp of smoke curling upward. The offering was accepted, the ritual complete, until the next November, when the ghost would knock again.
I'll be here. As long as the locks hold and the water flows, I'll be here.
The sun climbed over the jungle, and the canal woke to another day, unknowing of the secret that sailed through its heart.